Among the towering giants of 20th century art, Pablo Picasso, Salvador Dali, Andy Warhol, one woman's name burns with equal brilliance: Frida Kahlo. Her legacy is not just immortal, it is seared into history as a symbol of unyielding resilience and haunting artistry. Born amidst the vivid tapestry of Mexico City, Kahlo was forged in the fires of suffering, transforming unimaginable pain into masterpieces that were as much confessions of her soul as they were chronicles of her fractured existence. Stricken by illness in childhood and later shattered by a devastating accident, Kahlo's body bore scars that no surgeon could mend. Yet, from this relentless torment, a defiant spirit emerged, one that wielded a paintbrush like a sword, carving her anguish and passion into a visual language that transcends time and culture. Her tempestuous relationship with Diego Rivera, a love story as intoxicating as it was agonizing, infused her life with both ecstasy and despair, emotions that bled into every stroke of her work. With her piercing gaze, unflinching honesty, and a heart tethered to love, loss, and rebellion, Frida Kahlo dared the world to confront its own fragility and beauty. Her art is not merely seen, it is felt, a visceral reminder of the power of creativity to defy pain, reclaim identity, and echo across generations. In her strength, humor, and resilience, even to her final breath, Frida embodied a life lived as an unbroken odyssey of triumph and defiance. Join us as we delve into the life, the art, the passions, and the indelible legacy of Frida Kahlo, an artist who turned her wounds into wings. Frida Kahlo's life was intrinsically tied to her iconic blue house in Coyoacan, Mexico City. Built in 1904 by her father, Guillermo Kahlo, the vibrant home now serves as the Museo Frida Kahlo, preserving the essence of her life and art. Its colonial charm, central patio, and colorful gardens witness the defining moments of her existence, including her birth, marriage, and death. The house also reflects Guillermo's story, from his roots as Wilhelm Kahlo, born in Germany in 1872, to Hungarian Jewish parents, to his journey to Mexico in 1891 after a fall ended his academic aspirations. As a photographer, Guillermo meticulously documented Mexico's architectural heritage, earning acclaim for his precision and earning the title First Official Photographer of Cultural Patrimony. Guillermo's marriage to Matilde Calderon, a devout woman of mixed Spanish and indigenous descent, laid the foundation for Frida's life. Their union, though pragmatic, embodied resilience, with Guillermo's introspection and melancholia complementing Matilde's fortitude. Frida, born on July 6, 1907, during a turbulent period of Mexican history, inherited her father's introspective gaze and her mother's tenacity. She later aligned her birth year with 1910, the start of the Mexican Revolution, symbolizing her connection to the nation's revolutionary spirit. Frida's early years were shaped by her mother's illness, the care of an indigenous wet nurse, and the family's struggles during the Revolution, experiences that would later inspire her art. Frida's childhood was marked by both vibrant rebellion and profound solitude. Her fiery temperament surfaced in mischief and bold pranks, but she also endured isolation after contracting polio at 6, which left her right leg withered. Nicknamed Pata de Palo, or peg leg, she masked her deformity with layered socks and built-up shoes. Despite teasing and physical limitations, she embraced unconventional activities such as soccer and boxing, which were encouraged by her father, showcasing her determination to overcome adversity. Among Guillermo's 6 children, Frida shared a special bond with her father, rooted in their shared intellectual nature and mutual understanding of illness. Guillermo introduced her to photography, nurturing her technical skills and compositional precision, which later influenced her meticulous approach to painting. Their outings to parks, where Guillermo painted and Frida collected plants, were cherished moments that deepened her appreciation for art and nature. This bond strengthened after Frida's polio diagnosis, as their shared experiences of vulnerability fostered mutual care. Frida later honored Guillermo's resilience and influence in her 1952 painting, Portrait of Don Guillermo Kahlo, surrounding his likeness with symbolic imagery that celebrated his valiance and steadfast spirit. Frida's time at the National Preparatory School in 1922 marked the beginning of a transformative chapter in her life, thrusting her into the heart of Mexico City's intellectual and cultural revival. As one of only 35 girls among 2,000 students, Frida excelled academically, with ambitions of becoming a doctor, a path encouraged by her father. The school, a hub of post-revolutionary fervor under the guidance of José Vasconcelos, embodied the spirit of cultural reclamation, emphasizing indigenous heritage and public art as vehicles for social change. This vibrant atmosphere of reform and activism profoundly shaped Frida's worldview and identity. Immersed in this dynamic environment, Frida's individuality stood out. At 14, she adopted a striking and unconventional style: short hair, pleated skirts, and a schoolboy's knapsack, defying societal norms with her bold charm and mischievous humor. Preferring intellectual camaraderie over traditional friendships, she aligned herself with the cachuchas, a rebellious and witty group of students who embraced mischief, pranks, and philosophical debates. Their antics, from riding donkeys through school halls to petitioning for the removal of ineffectual professors, cultivated Frida's defiance, quick wit, and loyalty, traits that would define her relationships in art. Frida's intellectual curiosity flourished within this circle. At the Ibero-American Library near the school, surrounded by murals and revolutionary flags, she devoured works by Dostoevsky and Dumas, debated Hegel and Kant, and charmed newsboys and peddlers with her clever bets. During this period, Frida encountered Diego Rivera, a 36-year-old muralist whose work at the school captivated her. Sneaking into the amphitheater where Rivera painted, Frida engaged in playful pranks that masked her admiration for his charisma and talent. Her teasing hints about his romantic entanglements and bold declarations of wanting his child revealed the early sparks of what would become a passionate, lifelong connection. Rivera, in turn, remembered Frida vividly, recognizing the fiery spirit that set her apart even as a teenager. Frida's romantic and creative identity also blossomed through her relationship with Alejandro Gómez Arias, the eloquent leader of the Cachuchas. Their bond, evolving from friendship to romantic attachment, was expressed through late-night letters and intimate exchanges. Frida's letters to Alejandro brimmed with humor, emotion, and creativity, showcasing her emerging artistic sensibility. Her playful illustrations, including self-portraits and symbolic emblems, foreshadowed the individuality that would later define her art. Despite her parents' disapproval, Frida's determination to maintain their connection highlighted her passion and resilience. Frida's separation from Alejandro during Christmas 1923 heightened her feelings of loneliness and boredom, which she expressed with wry humor, lamenting the monotony of life in Coyoacán and begging him to bring books to ease her restless mind. She used playful sketches and witty remarks to mask her insecurities, once joking that blank pages from him would suffice as proof of his remembrance. Yet beneath her humor lay poignant admissions, such as her declaration, "I love you even if you do not love me as much as a flea." By 1924, Frida's love for Alejandro had deepened, and she expressed her longing through vivid metaphors, imagining herself as a tiny thing he could carry in his pocket. Their plans for a future together, including dreams of traveling to the United States, were tempered by practical challenges like finances and work. Frida sought greater independence, taking jobs as a cashier and later as an apprentice engraver under Fernando Fernandez, who recognized her budding artistic talent. These experiences offered her a measure of freedom to see Alejandro, defying her family's disapproval. On September 17, 1925, Frida's life was irrevocably altered by a catastrophic accident. A trolley collided with the bus she was riding with Alejandro, impaling her with a steel handrail and leaving her with devastating injuries: fractures to her spine, pelvis, collarbone, and ribs, a crushed foot, and irreparable damage to her abdomen. Alejandro's account of Frida's bloodied, gold-dusted figure, mistaken by onlookers for a dancer, captured the surreal horror of the scene. Against all odds, Frida survived her first surgery, beginning a long and arduous recovery. Immobilized and in excruciating pain, Frida endured months encased in plaster casts and braces. Her family's support, particularly her sister Matilda's humor and care, lifted her spirits. In letters to Alejandro, Frida reflected on her near-death experience, describing death as a vivid, ever-present specter. "Death dances around my bed at night," she wrote. Despite her suffering, she maintained her humor and resilience, referring to death as La Pelona, meaning the bald one, and finding solace in Alejandro's correspondence, which she reread for comfort. Back in Coyoacán by October 1925, Frida faced a slow and isolating recovery. Physical restrictions, unwelcome visitors, and the monotony of home life compounded her frustration. She found brief joys in writing to Alejandro, infusing her letters with sketches, affectionate nicknames, and playful requests for treats like chocolate cake. Her longing for his presence was palpable, as she believed his visits would help her endure her confinement. Her physical pain was matched by emotional struggles. Frida detailed her agony in a letter dated October 26, recounting treatments that included chloroform for her tendon and cocaine for her pain. Her yearning to regain mobility was relentless, driven by a desire to reclaim her independence. Despite small comforts like music and gifts, her sense of isolation deepened, especially as Alejandro's visits became infrequent. By November 1925, Frida Kahlo's relationship with Alejandro had become fraught with miscommunication and emotional distance. Her letters during this period reveal an aching vulnerability, as she accused Alejandro of neglect and questioned his loyalty, writing, "Tell me that you love me even if it isn't true." Her feelings of rejection deepened after missed visits and rumors about her reputation among their friends, which she believed Alejandro had betrayed. Comparing herself to the scandalous Nahuel Olin, Frida asserted her independence with defiance. "I like myself the way I am." Despite Alejandro's aloofness, her unwavering devotion persisted. This emotional tug-of-war culminated in Frida's first self-portrait in 1926, a reflection of her longing and resilience during her recovery from the trolley accident. Painted as a love offering to Alejandro, it depicted her in a velvet dress with a poised, introspective expression set against a somber background. Accompanying the portrait was a heartfelt letter asking Alejandro to place it where he could see it as if you were looking at me. For Frida, the painting was not just an attempt to rekindle their bond, but an extension of herself, blending vulnerability and dignity. She would reference the portrait as your Botticelli in later letters. The portrait also marked the beginning of Frida's transformation into an artist who used her pain as a creative force. After the trolley accident left her with severe injuries and ongoing physical suffering, Frida's dreams of becoming a doctor faded. Painting became her refuge, with her early works reflecting influences from Renaissance art and a growing personal symbolism. Her letters to Alejandro during this period oscillated between humor, longing, and vivid dreams of a future together, even as his eventual departure for Europe deepened her emotional turmoil. By mid-1927, Frida's health had improved enough to rejoin social and political circles, though her relationship with Alejandro began to unravel. His return later that year brought no resolution, as university life and Frida's burgeoning focus on art took precedence. Alejandro's affections shifted to another, leaving Frida heartbroken. Yet, this emotional upheaval coincided with her growing involvement in political activism and her introduction to Diego Rivera through the photographer Tina Medotti. By 1928, Frida had joined the Communist Party, and her connection with Rivera marked a turning point in her personal and artistic journey. Frida's evolving relationship with death and suffering became a defining element of her identity and art. While she could not paint her accident directly, she explored its trauma symbolically, particularly in self-portraits like The Broken Column, 1944, which juxtaposed her fractured body with a stoic gaze. These works transformed her pain into powerful imagery. As she navigated the heartbreak with Alejandro and the challenges of recovery, Frida began to channel her experiences into a creative legacy that immortalized her resilience and introspection. Diego Rivera, a towering figure in Mexican art and culture, was celebrated for his monumental murals that blended indigenous heritage, revolutionary ideals, and national identity. Born in Guanajuato in 1887, he trained in Europe before returning to Mexico in 1921, where his works, such as those at the Ministry of Public Education, epitomized Mexico's post-revolutionary cultural renaissance. His art celebrated the struggles of the working class and reclaimed Mexico's indigenous roots, creating a uniquely accessible artistic language that inspired national pride. Frida Kahlo met Diego in 1928, when he was already an icon, known as much for his charisma and unconventional relationships as for his art. Their first meeting at the Ministry of Education showcased Frida's audacity. She demanded an honest critique of her paintings rather than flattery. Diego, captivated by her raw talent and authenticity, encouraged her to continue painting. Their connection deepened quickly, fueled by mutual admiration and shared revolutionary ideals. Despite their age difference, Frida was 20, Diego over 40, their bond was immediate, dynamic, and transformative. Diego's encouragement influenced Frida's artistic development. Although she briefly emulated his muralist style, she quickly reclaimed her unique voice, focusing on personal, intimate subjects. Works like Portrait of Agustin M. Olmedo and The Bus demonstrated her growing confidence and emotional depth, while Diego's grand societal themes remained a stark contrast to her introspective approach. Their creative interplay enriched both their artistic practices, as Diego admired her unflinching honesty, and Frida critiqued his work with growing authority. Their marriage on August 21, 1929, marked the beginning of a tumultuous yet passionate partnership. Frida's father supported the union for the financial stability Diego could provide, while her mother opposed it, calling it a union between an elephant and a dove. Their modest civil ceremony reflected their unconventional approach to life. Frida embraced her role as Diego's partner, supporting him through illness and political strife, even leaving the Communist Party alongside him after his expulsion. Yet she also began asserting her artistic independence, painting self-portraits that explored her inner world and the emotional toll of her first failed pregnancy. Frida and Diego's relationship was a blend of collaboration, conflict, and deep affection. Diego's letters to Frida revealed a tender side, filled with affectionate sketches and whimsical nicknames like Frog Toad and Child of My Eyes. Despite Diego's infidelities, Frida's devotion to him endured. She would adopt the iconic Tijuana costume during this time, symbolizing her embrace of Mexican identity. In late 1930, the couple moved to San Francisco, where Rivera's murals blended Marxist ideals with industrial themes, funded ironically by capitalist patrons. Frida, still shy about her art, supported Diego while exploring the city's cultural diversity. She charmed those around her with wit and irreverence, while her keen observations deepened her appreciation for social contrasts. As Diego immersed himself in large-scale projects like Allegory of California, Frida continued to develop her artistic identity, her early works foreshadowing the deeply personal and symbolic style that would define her legacy. In San Francisco, Frida formed lasting relationships, including a deep bond with Dr. Leo Ellisor, whose medical advice she trusted throughout her life. Despite limited mobility due to her health issues, she painted several intimate portraits, such as her warm depiction of Eva Frederick, contrasting with her frustration toward superficial sitters like Mrs. Jean White. Her work during this period signaled a transition from realism to the symbolic and psychological depth that would define her later masterpieces. Notably, Luther Burbank depicted the horticulturist as a tree-man hybrid, exploring themes of life, death, and regeneration. Frida and Diego's partnership during these years showcased their contrasting artistic focuses, Diego's grand societal murals and Frida's intimate personal canvases. A profound turning point came with Frida's miscarriage in July 1932. Despite her initial optimism about motherhood, she endured devastating physical and emotional pain. This loss ignited her exploration of themes such as life, death, and motherhood, which would dominate her art. Her painting Henry Ford Hospital, 1932, created during her recovery, depicted her grief and trauma with raw surrealism, symbolizing her loss through vivid imagery and emotional intensity. These experiences cemented her transformation, as Frida began channeling personal suffering into groundbreaking works of art. Frida's longing for motherhood despite her physical limitations and Diego's indifference, became a central theme in her life and art. Unable to bear children, she channeled her nurturing instincts into her relationships with children, animals, and plants, creating a surrogate family of sorts. Frida lavished affection on Diego's daughters, her niece and nephew, and her menagerie of pets, weaving these symbols of care and fertility into her art. Her painting Me and My Doll, 1937, poignantly captured this sorrow, portraying herself alongside a lifeless doll as a stark metaphor for her unfulfilled maternal desires. Her grief inspired profound artistic exploration. In works like the lithograph Frida and the Abortion and her return to oil painting, Frida confronted the emotional complexities of pregnancy and loss. Collecting maternal tokens, such as dolls and a fetus in formaldehyde, she infused her pain into a deeply personal artistic narrative. Frida's time in Detroit, marked by the aftermath of her miscarriage, was both creatively productive and emotionally harrowing. Accompanying Diego daily to the Art Institute, she supported his work while cultivating her intellectual and artistic growth. Frida engaged in studies of biology and history with Lucien Bloch and impressed peers with her critical artistic insights. In Self-Portrait on the Borderline, Frida juxtaposed the sterile industrialism of the United States with the organic vitality of Mexico, asserting her cultural identity through sharp symbolism and vivid contrasts. Frida's yearning for Mexico deepened during this time, particularly after learning of her mother Mathilde's terminal illness in September 1932. Rushing home with Lucien Bloch, she endured a harrowing journey to reunite with her family. Mathilde's death profoundly affected Frida, deepening her reflections on life, death, and familial bonds. The grief of this loss spurred her to focus on supporting her father, Guillermo, and reconnecting with her siblings. Returning to Detroit emotionally drained, Frida painted My Birth, 1932, a raw and deeply personal depiction of her own birth and her mother's death. This work fused stark imagery with Aztec symbolism, portraying childbirth as a warrior's battle and emphasizing the cyclical nature of life and death. Frida later described the piece as representing the one who gave birth to herself. By March 1933, Rivera's Detroit industry murals sparked controversy, with critics accusing him of mocking capitalism. While civic groups debated their future, industrial workers rallied in support, reflecting Rivera's deep connection to the proletariat. This tumultuous backdrop accompanied Frida and Rivera's move to New York, where Rivera began his ill-fated Rockefeller Center mural. New York's lively energy reinvigorated Frida, and her candid wit delighted friends and critics alike. Despite her growing social presence, Frida's creative output slowed as she immersed herself in the city's cultural diversions. Rivera's Rockefeller mural, depicting Lenin juxtaposed with capitalist excess, ignited a scandal when Nelson Rockefeller demanded Lenin's removal. Rivera's refusal led to his dismissal and the mural's destruction, sparking public outcry. Frida supported Rivera throughout the controversy, encouraging Lucien Bloch to secretly photograph the mural to preserve its legacy. Protests erupted, with artists and intellectuals decrying censorship. The controversy strained Rivera's career, but Frida remained steadfast, actively supporting him during this period of backlash. As Rivera turned to new revolutionary projects, their relationship faced renewed tensions. Frida's health suffered amidst her feelings of isolation, and her longing for Mexico deepened. Her biting critique of the United States culminated in My Dress Hangs There, 1933, which juxtaposed her empty Tijuana dress with Manhattan's skyscrapers, mocking capitalism's wastefulness and moral decay. Upon their return to Mexico in 1933, Frida and Rivera moved into their newly constructed San Angel houses. Despite this symbolic homecoming, Frida's happiness was short-lived. Her artistic output waned, and personal betrayals soon compounded her emotional turmoil. Diego's affair with Frida's younger sister, Cristina, devastated her, leading Frida to cut her hair, abandon her traditional attire, and channel her anguish into her art. Hospitalizations for an appendectomy, abortion, and foot surgery further strained her resilience. Frida's emotional agony culminated in A Few Small Nips, 1935, a visceral painting inspired by a newspaper story of a violent crime. Its graphic imagery mirrored her sense of betrayal and emotional devastation. Frida briefly separated from Diego, moving to Mexico City and considering divorce. Despite her heartbreak, she remained connected to him, relying on art to navigate her pain and rebuild her sense of identity. Seeking solace, Frida traveled to New York in July 1935 with friends, writing a poignant letter to Diego expressing both her forgiveness and enduring love despite his infidelities. Her paintings during this period, such as Memory, 1937, and Remembrance of an Open Wound, 1938, embodied her ability to confront suffering with dark humor and provocative symbolism. Drawing from Mexican cultural traditions, these works transformed her personal anguish into powerful narratives of resilience and self-exploration. Frida's reconciliation with her sister Cristina in 1935 restored a vital familial bond, offering solace amidst the lingering pain of Diego's betrayal. Cristina became a pillar of support during Frida's surgeries and struggles. Their relationship provided a sense of family continuity, which Frida cherished even as her complex, turbulent connection with Diego persisted through separations, reconciliations, and mutual dependence. Cristina and her children became integral to the household, with Frida embracing her role as a loving and playful aunt. Their home was a vibrant mix of intimate family moments and a bohemian hub for artists, intellectuals, and political figures. Frida's exuberance extended to her adoption of Mexican cultural expressions, such as the language and mannerisms of working-class pelados, which infused her social interactions with humor and defiance. Yet beneath her vivacious exterior lay a deeper loneliness, a theme she explored in her art. While Diego tolerated her relationships with women, he grew possessive over her male lovers. Frida's affair with sculptor Isamu Noguchi exemplified her passionate independence, marked by humor, secrecy, and a dramatic confrontation with Diego. Frida's political fervor deepened during this time, particularly with the onset of the Spanish Civil War. She and Diego organized support for the Loyalist cause, hosting fundraisers and rallying workers. When Leon Trotsky and his wife Natalia sought asylum in Mexico in 1937, they found refuge in Frida and Diego's Blue House. Frida played a pivotal role in welcoming the exiled revolutionary, transforming her home into a vibrant yet secure sanctuary filled with pre-Columbian art and political discourse. Her brief affair with Trotsky added another layer of complexity to her personal life. Their clandestine meetings reflected Frida's defiant autonomy, though the affair ultimately ended due to its emotional and logistical strains. Her gift to Trotsky, a self-portrait inscribed with affection, encapsulated her charm, reclaiming her narrative through art. Between 1937 and 1938, Frida experienced a creative transformation, producing some of her most introspective and technically sophisticated works. Paintings like My Nurse and I and Girl with a Death Mask merged personal experiences with broader cultural and existential themes. In My Nurse and I, she depicted herself nursing from an indigenous nanny, symbolizing her connection to Mexico's ancestral roots and her grief over her inability to have children. Similarly, Girl with a Death Mask explored mortality through the lens of Mexican traditions. Frida's artistic evolution during the late 1930s reflects her increasing ability to merge deeply personal experiences with universal themes, a hallmark evident in works like The Deceased Demas. In this piece, she reimagines post-mortem portraiture with a striking feet-first perspective, evoking Mantegna's Dead Christ. The pale figure of the child, Demas, with haunting half-open eyes, confronts the viewer with the stark reality of death, while religious imagery juxtaposes with Frida's atheistic undertones. The sardonic title, Dressed Up for Paradise, blends irony with cultural symbolism, combining Mexican primitivism and European art influences. Frida's still lifes, such as I Belong to My Owner and Tunas, continued this thematic exploration, using fruits as metaphors for resilience, fertility, and mortality. In 1938, Frida's career reached a turning point with her first major sale to actor Edward G. Robinson, who purchased 4 paintings, granting her financial independence and recognition. Around this time, André Breton, the leader of the Surrealist movement, visited Mexico and hailed her as a natural surrealist. Frida, skeptical of Breton's grandiose claims, reluctantly accepted his invitation to exhibit her work at the Julian Levy Gallery in New York. This solo exhibition marked her international debut, showcasing 25 works that blended cultural symbolism, personal narratives, and emotional depth. The exhibition was a resounding success, selling half the pieces and attracting luminaries like Georgia O'Keeffe and Claire Booth Luce. Critics were captivated by Frida's blend of raw emotion and vibrant Mexican identity, though some reviews leaned patronizing. Frida herself charmed New York with her colorful Tijuana attire and magnetic personality. However, she maintained a detached attitude toward fame, framing her works in folk art materials to preserve their authenticity and her crafted persona. Frida's time in New York highlighted her dual identity as both a cultural ambassador and a deeply independent artist. While her health struggles persisted, she immersed herself in the city's cultural life. Her growing confidence as an artist and individual was evident in her romantic liaisons and interactions with figures like Julian Levy, who captured her enigmatic beauty through intimate photographs. In 1939, Frida traveled to Paris for another Breton-organized exhibition, navigating logistical chaos and cultural disillusionment. Despite her frustrations with European intellectual posturing, the show was critically acclaimed, with the frame becoming the first painting by a 20th century Mexican artist acquired by the Louvre. Frida mingled with luminaries like Picasso and Duchamp, though she found much of the surrealist movement hollow compared to her deeply personal approach to art. Her disdain for European apathy toward humanitarian crises, such as the plight of Spanish refugees, deepened her love for Mexico's resilience. Frida's complex relationship with surrealism reflects her independence from artistic movements. During her time in Paris, André Breton lauded her as a natural surrealist, yet Frida rejected the label, famously stating, "I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality." Her contributions to the 1940 International Exhibition of Surrealism in Mexico City, including the Two Fridas and the Wounded Table, solidified her global reputation while highlighting her divergence from surrealism's conceptual nature. These works explored themes of dual identity, heartbreak, and cultural heritage. Critics praised her sincerity and individuality, recognizing her ability to transcend European surrealism with a vision rooted in mexicanidad and autobiographical truth. This period marked a shift in Frida's artistic focus. Her works like Roots and Tree of Hope continued to integrate personal pain and resilience with cultural symbolism. Frida used precise, accessible imagery to transform her physical and emotional struggles into monumental symbols of endurance. Even her more dreamlike pieces, such as What the Water Gave Me, retain ties to her life's memories and tragedies, creating a bridge between her internal narrative and universal themes. Diego Rivera celebrated her ability to elevate microscopic details, veins, cells, and hearts, into profound representations of human existence. Frida's private diary, kept from 1944 until her death, offered an intimate view of her creativity and emotional life. It served as a sanctuary for unfiltered experimentation, filled with surreal imagery, spontaneous writing, and vibrant sketches. Unlike her meticulously realistic paintings, the diary reflected playful automatism and inkblot techniques, capturing her thoughts on physical suffering, her longing for Diego, and meditations on mortality. Despite the darkness in her diary, Frida's humor and resilience shone through, with irreverent wordplay and whimsical drawings providing glimpses of her indomitable spirit. Frida's divorce from Diego in late 1939 compounded her emotional struggles, but reflected their enduring connection. The dissolution of their marriage stemmed from a web of personal and political tensions. Rivera's infidelities and Frida's own affairs, such as her brief romance with Trotsky, added to the strain. Publicly, Rivera framed the divorce as a precaution to preserve Frida's independence and artistic success, praising her talent as among the best of modernist painters. Meanwhile, Frida remained vague, citing personal causes but acknowledging the growing distance between them after her return from Paris. Frida's self-portraits during her divorce from Rivera capture the emotional turmoil and resilience that defined this era. Self-portrait with cropped hair, 1940, symbolizes her defiance and transformation, presenting Frida in a man's suit, surrounded by shorn hair, rejecting the femininity Diego adored. Amidst her artistic evolution, Frida navigated personal challenges with remarkable tenacity. Her rejection of financial dependence on Diego underscored her independence, as she sold paintings to cover her expenses and sought a Guggenheim grant with glowing endorsements from prominent figures like Meyer Shapiro and Marcel Duchamp. Though the fellowship eluded her, Frida's dedication to her art remained unwavering. One of her most profound works, The Suicide of Dorothy Hale, demonstrates Frida's ability to channel tragedy into deeply empathetic and provocative art. Commissioned by Claire Booth Luce to memorialize her friend Dorothy Hale, the painting defied expectations by presenting a retableau-style narrative of Hale's suicide. Frida depicted Hale's fall in 3 stages, culminating in her lifeless body surrounded by blood. Frida's life during this period was also marked by political and personal turmoil, most notably the assassination of Leon Trotsky in 1940. Following a botched Stalinist attack, Trotsky was murdered by Ramon Mercader, a man whom Frida had once hosted in her home. The fallout thrust Frida into political chaos. She faced interrogations and endured her home's ransacking, all while grappling with grief and frustration over Diego's controversial role in bringing Trotsky to Mexico. Rivera's opportunistic posturing further strained their relationship, but Frida's resilience shone through as she navigated the complex intersection of personal tragedy and historical upheaval. Amidst these challenges, Frida and Diego reconciled, culminating in their remarriage in December 1940. Their second union, shaped by mutual respect and clearly defined terms, allowed Frida greater autonomy while maintaining their deep emotional bond. Though they lived together again, their relationship reflected a balance of independence and interdependence, with Frida managing household affairs and pursuing her art while continuing to care for Diego. The death of Frida's father, Guillermo, in 1941 dealt her a profound emotional blow, intensifying her physical and emotional struggles. Guillermo had been a source of support and inspiration throughout her life, and his loss deeply affected her. His passing compounded her physical suffering and emotional challenges, yet she channeled her grief into poignant works like Self-Portrait with Benito, which reflected themes of mourning, fragility, and resilience. Frida emerged as a prominent figure in Mexico's art scene, contributing to national cultural identity through her work and activism. As a founding member of the Seminario de Cultura Mexicana, she promoted Mexican heritage through exhibitions and dialogues. While her gender barred her from institutions like the Colegio Nacional, her influence as an artist and cultural advocate remained undeniable, shaping public appreciation for Mexican art and identity. Frida's portraiture during this time exemplified her technical mastery and emotional depth. Paintings like Doña Rosita Murillo and Mariana Murillo Safa captured the life-death cycle through meticulous realism and symbolic vegetation. Her affection for children and yearning for motherhood shone through her lifelike portrayal of Mariana, underscoring Frida's ability to blend personal longing with artistic brilliance. Frida's role as a teacher at La Esmeralda further showcased her impact on the next generation of artists. Rejecting rigid academic conventions, she encouraged students to draw inspiration from folk traditions, personal experiences, and Mexico's vibrant culture. Her mentorship extended beyond technical instruction, fostering individuality, authenticity, and social consciousness in her students, who became known as Los Fridos. Her home in Coyoacán served as both a sanctuary for creativity and a vibrant classroom where art and life intertwined. The La Rosita mural project epitomized Frida's dedication to community art and cultural heritage. By revitalizing pulqueria murals with her students, Frida combined artistic innovation with social engagement. The project's grand unveiling was a celebration of communal creativity, showcasing her belief in art as a unifying and transformative force. Frida's mentorship extended beyond the canvas to empower marginalized communities. Building on the success of the La Rosita mural, she guided her students, Los Fridos, in creating works like the Laundress's mural, celebrating the labor and dignity of working-class women in Coyoacán. This project combined Rivera-esque social realism with Frida's focus on authenticity, elevating the voices of underrepresented groups. These community-based art initiatives exemplified her belief in art's potential to connect, uplift, and advocate for social justice. Even as her students pursued independent careers, the values she instilled united them in their dedication to art and activism. Her philosophy, that art is a tool for empowerment, connection, and cultural celebration, ensured her legacy would endure through their work. Frida's 1945 self-portrait with Small Monkey encapsulates her profound physical and emotional anguish, masterfully translating her suffering into a symbolic and visually arresting narrative. The yellow ribbon, a recurring motif of connection in her work, transforms into an ominous symbol of entrapment. Winding around her neck, a pre-Columbian idol, her monkey, her dog, and ultimately fastening to a nail embedded in the desolate background, the ribbon evokes themes of suffocation and entanglement. The nail symbolizes both her chronic physical pain and her martyr-like endurance, while the ribbon's vibrant yellow, often associated with vitality, paradoxically signals her decline. By 1944, Frida's health had deteriorated significantly, marked by severe spinal pain, fainting spells, and debilitating weight loss. Misdiagnosed with syphilis, she endured invasive and often futile treatments, including spinal injections, blood transfusions, and immobilizing corsets. Despite the grotesque nature of her medical regimens, Frida displayed remarkable resilience. Visitors marveled at her ability to paint, tell stories, and retain her humor while confined by steel rings and corsets. Frida's 1945 painting Without Hope portrays her physical and emotional torment with unflinching honesty. Set against the volcanic Pedregal landscape, a metaphor for her scarred body, Frida lies confined to bed, clutching a grotesque funnel that disgorges a cascade of unsettling objects: meat, a fish, and a sugar skull bearing her name. These images evoke Aztec rituals, force-feeding, and the cosmic interplay of life and death, symbolized by the sun and moon overhead. On the painting's reverse, Frida's chilling inscription, "Not the least hope remains to me," encapsulates her despair. In 1946, Frida traveled to New York for a risky spinal fusion surgery, a procedure involving bone grafts and a metal rod. Her fortitude shone as she insisted on remaining conscious during the operation, finding solace in her sister Christina's presence. Despite excruciating post-surgical pain, Frida's creativity endured. She painted from her hospital bed, wrote letters filled with humor, and described her ordeal with striking clarity. Though the surgery failed to provide lasting relief, her unwavering determination to create and connect with others epitomized her resilience. Frida's 1946 painting, Tree of Hope, serves as a manifesto of endurance. A dual self-portrait, it juxtaposes a bleeding Frida on a hospital trolley with a regal version of herself in a red Tijuana dress, holding a banner inscribed with "Tree of Hope, keep firm." The split landscape of day and night reflects her internal duality, despair versus resilience. Similarly, in The Little Deer, Frida merges her identity with a young stag pierced by arrows, symbolizing her physical agony and stoic endurance. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera's relationship, remembered as a union of sacred monsters, transcended their artistic contributions. Their partnership was marked by intense love, mutual admiration, and tumultuous dynamics, including infidelity, separations, and reconciliations. Frida's art chronicled the evolution of their relationship, from the disconnection depicted in Frida and Diego Rivera, 1931, to the entrapment and self-portrait as a Tijuana, 1943, where Diego's image appears on her forehead, symbolizing her obsession and emotional entanglement. Diego and I, 1949, captures her anguish, with tears cascading from her eyes, and Diego's image imprinted on her forehead, symbolizing his omnipresence in her thoughts. Frida's love for Diego transcended societal norms, betrayal, and illness. In her art and writings, she immortalized him as more than a husband or lover. He was her muse, life force, and spiritual counterpart. Paintings like The Love Embrace of the Universe, The Earth, Mexico, Diego, Me, and Señor Solotl, 1949, epitomize this dynamic. Frida portrays herself as a nurturing Mexican earth goddess, cradling an infantile Diego while milk flows from her cracked chest, symbolizing both pain and sustenance. Diego, holding a maguey plant, a symbol of virility, is depicted as a dependent figure within the cosmic balance of life and death. This duality underscores their bond, rooted in devotion yet marked by pain. Despite the turmoil, their bond endured, fueled by profound affection and mutual creative inspiration. Diego's public praise for Frida's genius as a diamond among stones contrasted with her private reverence for him as her architect of life. Frida's devotion to Diego was unyielding, extending to both public and private realms. She defended his character and politics with unwavering fervor, as demonstrated in her portrait of Diego, which celebrated his authenticity and genius while critiquing a society she viewed as decaying. Her loyalty was physical as well as emotional. Frida once sustained injuries intervening in a fight to protect him. Despite the pain his infidelities caused, she rationalized his behavior with humor and acceptance, framing his unfaithfulness as an innate part of his nature. Diego's affairs, including a scandalous relationship with film star Maria Felix, tested Frida's tolerance. Publicly, she displayed humor and composure, offering Diego as a gift to Maria in a note, yet privately, she endured profound pain. Remarkably, Frida maintained friendships with Diego's lovers, reflecting her pragmatic approach to navigating her tumultuous marriage. Simultaneously, Frida sought agency through her own affairs, which served as acts of rebellion and self-assertion. Frida's journal illuminates her profound spiritual and erotic connection to Diego Rivera. She described their relationship as a cosmic dance, portraying herself as chromophoro, the giver of color, and Diego as oxochromo, the attractor of color. Through poetic imagery, she depicted Diego as the mirror of the night and the violent light of lightning, blending corporeal and universal dimensions to illustrate their intimate and transformative love. Diego, too, acknowledged Frida's unparalleled role in his life, confessing that without her, he would never have understood love. His response to Frida's existential question, "What do I live for?" with "So that I live," encapsulated their profound interdependence. Frida often described her love for Diego in maternal terms, blending nurturing care with sensual intimacy. She envisioned herself as his origin, simultaneously cradling and creating him. Her writings reflect this fusion, detailing her desire to bathe and care for him as acts of love and connection. This maternal role empowered her in a relationship often imbalanced by Diego's infidelities, allowing her to assert her centrality in his life. Yet it also encapsulated the contradictions of their bond, bringing her both profound joy and deep sorrow. Diego's childlike traits often surfaced, emphasizing Frida's maternal role. An incident where he grew possessive over a toy gifted to a visitor's child illustrates his insecurities. Frida's calm, affectionate response balanced his whims. She recounted his indecision and imagination, attributing them to his childlike wonder, which shaped his creative pursuits. These traits further deepened her connection to him, blending indulgence with admiration. Frida's diary entries convey the layered nature of her love for Diego. She regarded him as lover, husband, child, and even mother, writing, "Diego, my baby. Diego, my boyfriend. Diego, my universe." Yet she accepted his independence, poignantly noting, "Why do I call him my Diego? He never was nor ever will be mine. He belongs to himself." In 1950, Frida faced a harrowing medical crisis. A gangrenous infection in her right foot led to numerous surgeries and a prolonged hospital stay. Her ordeal included a spinal fusion that left her grappling with infections, paralysis, and unrelenting pain. Vivid accounts from her sister Matilda describe the draining of infected wounds and the sensation of lying on broken glass. Frida's humor and courage remained evident, even as she endured immense physical suffering. Despite being bedridden and encased in plaster corsets, Frida channeled her energy into art. Her letters reflected frustration at her physical limitations and gratitude for her guardian angel, Dr. Leo Ellisor. While she humorously likened herself to a cabbage, she remained determined to paint, using creativity as a psychological anchor. Visitors adorned her corsets with art, and Frida herself transformed her pain into meaningful expression, crafting an extraordinary sanctuary of resilience and creativity within the hospital. Frida's art during this time reflected her unyielding spirit. With a custom-designed easel, she painted works like My Family, exploring themes of lineage and connection. Emotional drawings, created in collaboration with Olga Campos, delved into love, joy, and pain. Through her art, Frida reclaimed her identity and demonstrated the power of creation as both a refuge and a testament to survival. Frida's hospital room became a hub of life and connection. Family, friends, and admirers visited to offer support, often leaving inspired by her humor, compassion, and vitality. Despite her pain, Frida focused on uplifting others, masking her vulnerability with charm and wit. Frida's outward resilience contrasted with her inner vulnerability. Her art and letters reveal a fragile emotional state beneath her humor and stoicism. Works like Self-Portrait with the Portrait of Dr. Farrell capture this duality, with her heart depicted as a palette. Even as her body deteriorated, she infused her surroundings with life, laughter, and art. Frida turned her hospital stay into a celebration of life. Visitors brought her favorite meals, films, and tequila, creating an atmosphere of joy and camaraderie. Diego's tender gestures, like renting a projector for her favorite movies, underscored their enduring connection, this vibrancy juxtaposed against her grim medical reality. Her mornings began with small meals and attempts to paint, often from her bed or the outdoors when possible. Afternoons brought visitors, including luminaries like Maria Felix, family members, and political allies. Her sister Christina's devoted care ensured she was seldom alone, while social gatherings and familial warmth offered a semblance of normalcy. Yet beneath her vibrant attire and floral adornments lay a deep sense of loneliness, as reflected in her diary. Rare excursions to markets or nearby towns provided brief reprieves from confinement. These outings, supported by her nurse or friends, became acts of defiance against her physical limitations. Frida's ability to connect with people from all walks of life shone during these moments, such as when she befriended young boys, gifting them cigarettes and inviting them to movies. Evening gatherings, organized by Diego, became sanctuaries of joy and connection. Although often limited to observing the festivities, Frida's laughter and wit lit up the room. These moments offered her an escape from physical suffering, immersing her in the cultural vibrancy she cherished. In her final years, painting became Frida's assertion of life and agency. Still lifes, often featuring oversized fruits with bruises and gashes, mirrored her own fragility while celebrating vitality and renewal. Though she faced profound physical decline, her unyielding spirit, vibrant creativity, and deep connections to art and activism defined her existence. Confined largely to her home, she transformed pain into purpose, anchoring herself in relationships, routine, and revolutionary ideals, even as she grappled with isolation and despair. Frida's commitment to Marxism deepened in her later years, offering her a sense of purpose and interconnectedness. Her diary, filled with praise for revolutionary leaders, reflected her belief in a harmonious future born from struggle. This ideological fervor provided a lens through which she viewed her personal challenges, connecting her suffering to broader societal struggles. Frida's final creative acts were imbued with defiance and vitality. In 1952, she led her students in revitalizing the murals of La Rosita Pulqueria, infusing the project with personal humor and cultural commentary. Despite her physical limitations, she declared rebellion against her body's constraints, embodying her unyielding spirit. Frida's 1953 solo exhibition in Mexico, a celebration of her artistic legacy, became a theatrical act of resilience. The opening night of the exhibition was a surreal celebration of her life and art. Guests from all walks of life, artists, working-class admirers, and intellectuals gathered in what was described as a procession of monsters, drawn by Frida's magnetic presence. Reclining in her bed adorned with skeleton Judas figures, she became the centerpiece, transforming the gallery into a space where art, life, and death intertwined. Frida's arrival on a stretcher, dressed in her iconic Tijuana costume, embodied the duality of her existence, vibrant defiance juxtaposed with her waning physical strength. The exhibition received critical and public acclaim, with international media highlighting Frida's resilience. Critics praised her ability to weave her personal narrative into her art, while publications like Time quoted her defiant words, "I am not sick, I am broken, but I am happy to be alive as long as I can paint." The overwhelming response led to an extension of the exhibition. For Diego Rivera, the exhibition was a bittersweet moment. He took immense pride in Frida's success, but was deeply pained by her deteriorating health. Witnessing her final public triumph was a moment of artistic validation, overshadowed by the inevitability of her physical decline. Later in 1953, Frida faced the devastating decision to amputate her leg due to a gangrenous infection. Her visceral reaction, a scream of anguish, revealed the profound loss of identity and autonomy tied to her condition. Diego's despair mirrored her own as he recognized the physical and emotional toll this would exact on her. Frida confronted her amputation with her characteristic dark humor, calling herself Frida the Gimp, and imagining herself as flying without her leg. This humor, however, masked deeper anguish, as seen in her diary sketches of severed limbs and disintegration. Through her art, she sought catharsis, creating metaphors of resilience, such as her captioned sketch, "Feet. What do I want them for if I have wings to fly?" Following her surgery, Frida retreated into isolation, emotionally withdrawing even from Diego. Caregivers observed her haunting silence, a stark contrast to her once fiery spirit. Compounding her despair was the betrayal she felt from Diego's relationship with Emma Hurtado, which further eroded her sense of agency. Frida reclaimed a measure of agency through her prosthetic leg, which she adorned with embroidered red leather boots and bells. This act transformed a symbol of loss into an expression of vitality and defiance. Frida's diary entries from this period reveal a complex interplay of despair and fragile hope. She expressed a yearning for death, feeling that her suffering had reached its peak, yet moments of gratitude for Diego, her doctors, and her own indomitable will emerged. She credited her survival to Diego, whom she tenderly called her child, reflecting her dependence on and devotion to him. The amputation of her leg exacerbated Frida's sense of helplessness. Even simple tasks became perilous, as illustrated by a fall that embedded a needle in her body. As her condition worsened, Frida's emotional volatility grew more pronounced. She lashed out at loved ones, particularly Diego, over minor issues, only to regret her actions later. These outbursts were fueled by physical pain, drug-induced instability, and profound inner turmoil. Diego, deeply anguished by her suffering, oscillated between comforting her with tender stories and lamenting his inability to ease her pain. Diego's presence remained both a source of solace and tension. His absences deepened Frida's feelings of isolation, yet his return softened her anger and brought fleeting peace. Despite his infidelities and emotional distance, Frida's love for Diego endured, anchoring her in her darkest moments. Amid her suffering, Frida turned to painting as a form of catharsis and resistance. Despite excruciating pain and limited mobility, she returned to her studio, creating works imbued with raw emotion and bold symbolism. Frida's participation in a communist demonstration shortly before her death exemplified her unwavering defiance. Slumped in her wheelchair, she raised a banner and shouted anti-imperialist slogans, transforming her deteriorating body into a symbol of resistance. This act, though self-destructive, underscored her commitment to her ideals and her refusal to yield to her physical decline. Frida's 47th birthday, celebrated just days before her death, was a bittersweet farewell. Surrounded by friends, music, and flowers, she presided over the gathering with grace and humor, though the weight of finality loomed. Frida's final diary entries reveal her raw confrontation with death, blending despair, resignation, and fragile hope. Chaotic sketches of winged figures and a black angel embody her struggle with mortality, expressing an inner turmoil that was deeply personal yet universal. Her poignant final words, "I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to come back," encapsulate her complex relationship with life and death, and sparking enduring speculation about whether her passing was an act of will or inevitability. In her last paintings, Frida intertwined revolutionary ideals with personal anguish. Works like Frida and Stalin and Marxism Will Give Health to the Sick depicted political figures as saviors, symbolizing her yearning for solace amidst physical decline. While overtly ideological, these pieces remained deeply autobiographical, reflecting her persistent effort to reconcile personal suffering with her faith in political and social change. On the night of July 12, 1954, Frida presented Diego with a gold ring intended for their upcoming silver anniversary, confessing her premonition that her end was near. Despite her bronchopneumonia and enduring pain, she displayed characteristic humor, joking about the monotony of her restricted diet. Early the next morning, she briefly awakened in pain but fell back asleep after being comforted by her nurse. By 6 a.m. on July 13th, she was found lifeless, her eyes open and gazing into the void. While the official cause of death was pulmonary embolism, speculation persists that her passing might have been the result of an intentional or accidental overdose. Diego Rivera was profoundly affected by Frida's death, describing her face in death as tranquil and more beautiful than ever. In his autobiography, he later confessed that losing her illuminated the irreplaceable role she played in his life, a realization that came too late. Rivera's grief was palpable as he grappled with the void left by her absence, oscillating between disbelief and sorrow while carrying the weight of regret. Frida's body was laid out in her home, adorned in traditional Tijuana attire with jewelry and flowers. Friends and admirers gathered to mourn and marvel at her beauty and death. Later, her coffin was transported to the Palace of Fine Arts in Mexico City, where she lay in state surrounded by red flowers and a communist flag. Her funeral, both deeply personal and overtly political, reflected her unwavering ideals. Diego's defiance in refusing to remove the flag underscored their shared commitment to revolution, even in death. On July 14th, a procession of over 600 mourners followed Frida's coffin through the rain-soaked streets of Avenida Juarez, led by an honor guard including Rivera and former President Lázaro Cárdenas. Patriotic songs and hymns filled the air, mirroring the collective sorrow and admiration for Frida's life and legacy. The mourners' unity and grief reflected Frida's profound connection to her nation and the causes she championed. At the modest crematorium, mourners bid their final goodbyes as Frida's body, adorned with flowers and red carnations, was prepared for cremation. Rivera, overwhelmed by grief, insisted on music accompanying her cremation. Revolutionary hymns and traditional ballads created a poignant farewell as flames consumed her body. For a moment, her fiery silhouette seemed to rise, a vivid and symbolic defiance of death. In the aftermath, Rivera paid homage to Frida through acts of reverence and ritual. He housed her ashes in a pre-Columbian urn at her Blue House, transforming it into a museum in 1955. Preserving her art materials, personal belongings, and iconic objects, the museum became a living testament to her spirit. Her final painting, Viva la Vida, inscribed with its life-affirming title, encapsulates her enduring defiance and joy, despite her life of profound pain. Frida Kahlo's farewell reflects the contradictions that defined her life. Humor amidst pain, defiance in the face of decline, and an unyielding commitment to art and ideals. Whether her death was a final act of agency or quiet surrender, it marked the culmination of a life of resilience, creativity, and individuality. Through her art, her home, and the memories of those who knew her, Frida's legacy remains a beacon of strength, creativity, and human complexity. Her spirit continues to inspire, a flame that burns brightly against the shadows of profound suffering and mortality. So what are your thoughts on the extraordinary life and legacy of Frida Kahlo? Share your reflections in the comments below. I'd love to hear how her journey resonates with you. Thank you, as always, for watching and celebrating the life of this iconic artist with me. Until next time, keep seeking the stories that move your soul.